public interest organisation Sakeliga has instructed its legal team to prepare an application for contempt of court against Cogta Minister Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma for allegedly failing to provide it with documentation that explains and justifies the government's COVID-19 response and lockdown. Sakeliga CEO Piet le Roux joins us now for more. Piet, good evening to you and welcome to Full View. There are specific documents that you believe the minister isn't making public in respect of decisions that were made around the declaration of a state of disaster and COVID-19. What do they comprise?
The minister is required under the court order to make available to Sakeliga all the records she used in making her decisions regarding the declaration of the state of disaster, the repeated renewal of the state of disaster or extension of it, and all the regulations that was made under the state of disaster. It's a mystery. I mean, we were told for 2 years what we should do and eat and walk and live and so on, but we were never furnished with official reasons. And we can get into this later on, but we keep on insisting. We want these reasons. The court agrees, and Dr. Dlamini-Zuma remains in breach of the order.
So just in response to this, we understand that apparently there was a lawyer's letter from Dr. Dlamini-Zuma's legal team saying that the documents that you're seeking are covered by privilege, and they also, we understand, made technical objections to the case, but critically, opposing papers were not filed. So what does that mean now? Well,
in the end, it means that the court granted Sakeliga's request for an order that compels Dr. Dlamini-Zuma to make this available. That is, there is no merit in our arguments regarding cabinet privilege and so on. She was a state official, and it's true, she was not alone in supporting or deciding on lockdown, but she was the official person responsible for the decision, for the declaration and for the regulations. And she is required. Therefore, that is why we are requiring from her, even though she may have discussed it with cabinet, undoubtedly she was in contact with President Ramaphosa. What we want from her is her reasons. And if it turns out that she says, I did it because President Ramaphosa said I should, well, then that's the reason. Point is, we need the reasons, and cabinet privilege cannot stand in the way of a public knowing why some of the most extensive interventions in their lives, more than 2 years, took place. Remember, 2 million people lost their jobs, and I can keep counting the victims of the lockdown. Well, let's do that. I'm going to come to the court modalities in just a moment, but you believe that these developments and your pursuit of the minister for contempt of court is deeply in the public interest. Why? It's deeply in the public interest, first, because it is important to evaluate whether the minister was justified in her decisions and whether some of them were or were not. I can say that I doubt very much, and I suspect that we will find that most of it was not justified. But it is important for a polity, for a society to grow and to improve. We must reflect on what went wrong and what didn't. So instead of just saying Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini did everything wrong, let's get her reasons and then we can properly evaluate. But with a view to the future, we must also prevent the excesses of what happened. We saw some new fear-mongering now, which is happily dying down, but there were some new scares going on. Even the Department of Health tweeted that everybody should wear masks again. What sort of advice is that on social media? And it just scares people, and it is inapplicable and inappropriate. And so with a view to the future, we should prepare better so that we can more easily prevent politicians from going haywire and making arbitrary decisions to the extent that they have. Those are two reasons for why it's very important to keep state officials and their power in check. Yeah, I mean, and look, understandably, there were a lot of questions, one would recall at the time, to understand the mindset of why government was motivating for this or that decision. Some of them did certainly in early days seem to be arbitrary, such as, the wearing of flip-flops and the like. But let's go back to the court modalities now. So the Pretoria High Court deadline expired 5 days ago. You were hoping that the minister's office would comply, but you're also demanding that the state attorney produces an explanation as to why the minister is not submitting the records you seek. I think it was the meetings
minute meeting, some of the interdepartmental correspondence, and some of the draft regulations. I believe the deadline was today. Today's the 11th. Have you heard anything? Are you expecting to?
Well, Dr. Dlamini has actually been in breach of the court order since late December. We unilaterally extended and gave her an additional time to comply by 6 January because we want to be reasonable, even though she's in breach of the court order. We gave her an extension by 6 January. We had two groups of documentation delivered to us, one electronically, several thousand pieces of paper, and then on the 6th of January, another file, this time physically, of about 3,800 papers. But these were either already in the public domain or not applicable, and so on. It's not the documentation that she has resisted providing and that she has actually argued she should not provide. So these documentation, it does exist. We'd like to see the minutes, intergovernmental correspondence, all the reasons, all the documentation on which she based her decisions. I understand from our attorneys, this is breaking news that I share now for the first time with you and your viewers, that we earlier today received another batch of documents. We will now investigate those, although based on our previous experience, it's unlikely that Dr. Dlamini-Zuma has complied. And in fact, the fact that the state attorney keeps providing documents just shows that she is definitely in breach of the court order, by implication, by their own admission, because this is already after she was ordered by the court to provide. New documents keep turning up. We will evaluate them in the next few days, but I suspect that they will not be satisfactory.
Piet, I just want to recap. You're saying that now, as we've been speaking, the documents that you were requested, I was talking about the 11th of January from the Minister's office, your attorneys have now just received those documents from the Minister's office, but you're going to evaluate whether these are the particular documents you've been seeking. Just confirm that for me, please.
Yes, I cannot confirm that it is the documents that we have requested or that the court have ordered. I can confirm that we have received another batch of documents, though based on past experience, it's unlikely. I don't expect that to be the documents required. We shall see, but we are in the meantime continuing the process of holding her in contempt, and unless until there is sufficient documentation, she is in breach of the court order.
That's what I was seeking to confirm, that you in fact received some documents from the Minister's office. Thank you very much, Piet, for that. But also just keep close communication with our team and let them know if indeed these are the documents that you had been seeking initially, which will include things like the minutes of meetings and some of the interdepartmental correspondence. Piet le Roux is the CEO of Sakeliga and was telling us a bit more about their pursuit of a contempt of court order against the Minister, Dr. Dlamini-Zuma.